Check the mic and make sure it sound right.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the City Light Project YouTube channel for another UFC Fight Night predictions video where I will give my predictions starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So be sure to watch throughout the entire video to hear my prediction on the main event of the evening. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Rafael Alves against Nurullo Aliev. Rafael Alves, the turn from Brazil. He's 32 years old, 20 wins, 11 losses, 7 KO, TKO, 8 submissions, 5 decisions. He lost his last fight in a competitive fight with Drew Dober and has actually piled up some nice wins in his early UFC career, as well as his career in Titan, FC, Combat Americas, Jungle Fights. I mean, this guy's a veteran in the game. Hits hard, super competitive, Rafael Alves. Up against the Tajikistan phenom right now, Nurullo Aliev. He looked damn good on Contender Series. He is 8-0, undefeated in his pro MMA career. 6 decisions, 2 KO, TKO. Beats a baby-looking motherfucker in Josh Wick on the Dana White Contender Series. Just ground and pounded him. And piled up most of his wins, let's be honest, on regional scenes that we haven't really heard much of before. Again, he's a prospect, there's a lot of hype, and the inevitable Dagestani crowd is backing him. So, excited to see what he brings to the UFC. Nurullo Aliev against Rafael Alves. All right, folks, I am going with Rafael Alves on this one for a few big reasons here. Now, some people may roll their eyes at me. I don't care. I don't care. Again, going back to the Drew Dober fight, it was an awesome first round. Alves was putting it on Drew Dober. Now, Drew Dober's tough as nails, as we've seen in pretty much all of Drew Dober's fight. But Rafael Alves, he's tough as nails as well. Now, I know his career record isn't anything special at 20-11, but it's almost like he got more losses like in the mid part of his career, and he's starting to get it together now. I cannot say enough how awesome of a first round he had against Drew Dober. He's more experienced. He has more power in his hands. Excellent guillotine, as we've seen before. I think this is just too big of a jump for Aliev right into the UFC. Your first fight, and you're thrown not only in the deep end of the pool, but in the freaking ocean. There's levels to this game. Not that Alves is a title contender or anything close to that, but the guy is a seasoned veteran in the game. And he's shown he can hang there with some of, solid guys in the UFC. Aliev, maybe 8-0. It's a little padded. Alves is good. Not the best record. He ain't great, but he's a level above Aliev. It's a tough first fight, so I have to give it to Rafael Alves. Next, Joe Solecki against Carl Deaton. Joe Solecki, 12-3 in his pro MMA career at lightweight. 7 submissions, 4 decisions, 1 KO, TKO. His only loss in the UFC was to Jared Gordon in a close split decision. He beat Jim Miller, Matt Wyman, and those are only the real names of note. But hey, on the come-ups, look good thus far in the UFC, 4-1, and Jared Gordon's no slouch, as we saw in his last fight, which he should have won against Paddy Pimblett. His opponent, Carl Deaton, 17-5 pro MMA record. 3 KO, TKO, 9 submission, 5 decision. He's 33 years old and he's training out of American Top Team. He's making his UFC debut. He is taking this fight on short notice, but it is important to note that he was in a training camp, training for another fight outside of the UFC. He's on 2-fight win streak right now, but as you can see here, hasn't really fought in any promotion of note other than one fight in RFA back in 2014 where he lost. Props to him for taking this on short notice, but Carl Deaton is really going to have his work cut out for him against Joe Solecki, which is why I'm picking Joe Solecki to win this one. Look, opponent short notice against Joe Solecki. I get it. He was in training camp. He was training for another fight, but folks, the guy he was supposed to fight was a 5-2 guy, and again, it was on the regional scene. Now, Solecki was actually supposed to fight the Canadian Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis is no slouch. Benoit Saint-Denis is a solid fighter. I mean, if you have gone through a training camp to fight Benoit Saint-Denis, I mean, you're ready for a freaking Carl Deaton on short notice, fresh off the regional scene. Solecki's solid, young. He's fought great guys on the come-up. His submission game is unbelievable, and I think he's going to make easy work of Carl Deaton. Now, Carl Deaton get the upset of the century? Maybe, and that would be quite the statement in your first UFC fight. But again, I think this one is going Joe Solecki's way all day, every day. Next, we have Ode Osbourne against Charles Johnson. Ode Osbourne, the Jamaican sensation, 11-5 in his pro MMA career, 31 years old, 5 KO, TKO, 4 submission, 2 decision. He's a pretty balanced fighter. He lost his last fight to Tyson Nam, where he got knocked the hell out. That was actually pretty brutal back in August. Enough time now to recover, though, and get back on the saddle. Before then, he was on a 2-fight win streak. Decision against Vergara, where actually he did employ a little bit of a wrestling game in that fight. And then he got a KO against Adashev. His UFC career hasn't been easy, as in his first official UFC fight after coming off Contender Series. He did lose to Brian Kelleher, beat Jerome Rivera, lost, went on a 2-fight win streak, and then got knocked out Tyson Nam. So he's nothing special, but he has some skills, especially on his feet, does Ode Osbourne. He's an exciting fighter to watch. Charles Johnson, though, Energy, 13-3 in his pro MMA career, 32 years old, 6 KO, TKO, 3 submission, 4 decisions, very balanced record. He won his last fight against Jimmy Flick, a nice TKO via elbows, via the ground and pound. He beat Zhalgas Zhumagulov, but very, very close decision, and honestly a little bit of a controversial decision, but hey, a win's a win. And he was the only fighter to take Mokaev the distance and actually look tremendous with his takedown defense. And though Mokaev had more of the dominant position on him, Mokaev could never get in the positions that he wanted to get to, as the defense on Energy is quite incredible as far as his grappling. He was on a win streak coming out of LFA before taking that fight against Mokaev, and he's gone on a 2-fight win streak since. Is Charles Johnson Energy. I'm going with Charles Johnson on this one. I mean, I like everything about him except his freaking god-awful, I don't even know what you call it, ponytail mullet, where the rest of your hair is shaved except for just like a little patch on the back that's all braided and dyed. I mean, what the hell, man? But anyways, I digress. I like everything about him except for his hairstyle. Great grappler, unbelievable takedown defense. Like I said, he gave Mokaev his toughest fight yet as a pro, I would say, and especially in the UFC. I don't think Johnson's going to get taken down at all by Ode Osbourne. And I think his cardio is great as well. I just think he's better than Ode Osbourne all around. Like, yeah, if they stood there and just banged it out the entire fight, maybe Ode Osbourne catches him with something. But even then, even if they didn't go to the ground at all, even if there wasn't any grappling, I'm still giving it to Charles Johnson. The guy's a brawler. The guy's sound in every area of mixed martial arts. Hey, 2-fight win streak, one of them controversial. Let's see him duke it out with Ode Osbourne, and I think he'll get this one. The thing is, if he starts getting the better of Ode Osbourne on the feet, and Ode Osbourne tries to take him down, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And as soon as Ode Osbourne realizes that, he's going to panic. Anyways, I got Energy winning this one. Let's make it 3, baby. On to the next one. Jordan Leavitt against Victor Martinez. Jordan, the Monkey King Leavitt, 10-2 in his pro MMA career, and he's only 27 years old. I'm older than Jordan Leavitt. 1 KO, TKO, 6 submissions, 3 decisions. He lost his last fight to Paddy Pimblett via rear naked choke in the 2nd round. Before that was on a 2-fight win streak against Matt Sales, Troy Ogden. Lost to Claudio Puelles in a close unanimous decision. What's crazy about that is he actually rolled with Puelles, and Puelles is a very, very dangerous grappler. Has nothing on the feet, absolutely nothing on the feet, but is an absolute menace on the ground, especially going for those heel hooks and knee bars. Came off Dana White's Contender Series with a win in his UFC debut and was on a win streak undefeated before going to Contender Series. He kind of fought all over the place. Gladiator, tough enough. FFC, but did have a fight in LFA, which ultimately got him the invite to Contender Series, and he's looked good ever since. Speaking of the Contender Series, Victor Martinez, the Brick, 13 wins, 4 losses. He's 31 years old, 8 KO, TKO, 0 submissions, 5 decisions. Talk about a grappler-striker matchup. Coming off a win on Contender Series himself, unanimous decision against Jacob Rosales. That was a brawl. That was a fun fight. Coming off the unanimous decision, he earned himself a contract. Before then, fought in Fury FC as well as STFC predominantly. A little bit older than Jordan Leavitt. Very much a striker. Hits hard. As you can see here, a lot of TKOs on his resume. Despite having pretty good hands, I'm going with Jordan Leavitt. I'm going with the Monkey King. He's a good fighter. He's still a good prospect. Yes, he lost to Paddy Pimblett. Yes, I know he lost to Paddy Pimblett. But Paddy Pimblett is a better grappler than he is a striker, okay? And I feel like Paddy Pimblett was dictating that fight. He was kind of bullying Jordan Leavitt a little bit after they banged it out on the feet a little bit and they went a whole round feeling each other out. I'm pretty sure Paddy got a little bit rocked in that one too. I'm pretty sure Leavitt landed a few shots in that first round. Again, Leavitt's nothing special. He's a solid grappler. I would say that's probably his best asset, but he's a good fighter all around and he's just getting better. That's the thing. How much has he improved from his last fight at only 27 years of age? Victor Martinez, I don't think he's good enough to put Leavitt away. I think Leavitt's actually got a decent chin. I don't think Martinez is going to knock him out, and the guy puts out guys on the regional scene. That's his thing. That's how he earned himself a UFC contract. It's crazy to think he didn't even put out his opponent on Contender Series, yet he still landed a UFC contract. Leavitt's a better grappler than Martinez by far. I really think this is going to be a submission win for Jordan Leavitt. Probably second round, but anyways, regardless, I'm going with Jordan Leavitt. Whether it goes the distance, he's going to win by decision unanimously, or he eventually gets this to the ground and Victor Martinez gets submitted. Jordan Leavitt, that's my pick. On to the next one. Next, we have Jasudavicius against Gabriela Fernandes. Jasudavicius out of St. Catharines, Ontario. Oh, Canada, baby. 7-2 in her pro MMA career. She's 33 years old. 2 KO TKO 1 submission for decision. She's fighting out of Niagara Top Team. Before her last loss to Nadia Silva, she was on a 3-fight win streak. Cage Fury FC, where she had her last 3 fights before getting a win on Contender Series, which ultimately earned her a contract into the UFC. She also fought in Cage Titans as well. So some decent promotions on the come up, but got humbled in her last fight against Natalia Silva. Her opponent, a solid prospect who a lot of people, especially on Tapology, if you look at the poll question on that page, I know we're on SureDog right now, but if you go on Tapology and look at the poll question there, our friend Gravedigger Jones, and by the way, shout out to the exclusive members who like Gravedigger Jones. But anyways, Gravedigger Jones always likes to participate in that. You can give your predictions on Tapology, and everyone is going for Gabriela Fernandes. 8-1 in her pro MMA career. She's 29 years of age. 3 KO TKO, 2 submissions, 3 decisions, so quite balanced in her young career. She has not lost since her second pro fight. Her last 3 wins have come through LFA, and what's awesome about her is her camp, her coaches, her gym always gave her new challenges on the come up. She got tested early and has gone on an absolute dominant win streak since then. 3 fights in LFA, last 2 finishes. Oh, this one hurts me because I usually pick with my heart, not my head, if the fighter in question is from my country of Canada. Oh, Canada, I can't do it this time. I think this is the first time in my prediction video where I did not go with the Canadian. I can't trust Jasmine right now. I'm going with Gabriela Fernandes. She's an awesome prospect. She's fought some great fighters on the rise, like I said. Rarely do I pick against the Canadian, but Jasmine got up in her last fight. Absolutely destroyed. It hurt my soul to watch it. Natalia Silva beat her to a pulp, man. It showed that there were levels to this. It showed that Jasmine was not even close to the level she needs to be at if she ever wants to contend for the title. Maybe it was an off night. Maybe she's going to look better here. I hope. I'll be rooting for the Canadian, but I have to pick Gabriela Fernandes here. Prove me wrong, Jasmine, but we're going with the Brazilian. Speaking of Gravedigger Jones in this segment, what does he always say? Always, when in doubt, always pick the Brazilian. Gabriela Fernandes, she's going to get her 10th win against the Canadian. Next, Erick Gonzalez against Trevor Peek. Erick Gonzalez, Ghost Pepper Gonzalez, 14 wins, 7 losses. He's 31 years of age. 8 KO TKO, 1 submission, 5 decisions. So you know what he's going to do in this one. You know what he's going to try to do in this one. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Jim Miller early in the second round via KO, got knocked out, and then lost to Terrence McKinney via submission, rear naked choke in his last fight. So on a 2-fight losing streak, no shame losing to Terrence McKinney, but man, Jim Miller, you know what? I should say that there's no shame losing to Jim Miller either. Jim Miller had an awesome fight in his last fight against Alex Fernandes. Jim Miller's freaking almost 40 years old. No shame, but I feel like if you're on the come up, these are the guys you have to beat, the veterans like a Jim Miller. Before then, he was on a 2-fight win streak, but outside the UFC. Looking to get his first win in the UFC is Erick Gonzalez. Looking at his opponent, Trevor Peek, 7-0, 28 years old, fighting at lightweight, 7 KO TKO. 0 submissions, 0 decisions. So you know what this guy's gonna go in there and try to do against a guy like Erick Gonzalez, who has a lot of KO TKOs and a guy who likes to stand and bang. This one should be an exciting fight. Coming off Contender Series where he beat Malik Lewis via brutal KO TKO. I remember we did a live stream for that on week 8. That was a lot of fun. He's a fun fighter to watch, and he's got some power in his hands, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 KO TKOs in a row. That's crazy. 7 wins, 7 TKO, like we said. And he's fought primarily only in AFC and AFS. It's not like the best regional promotions, but it's not like he was fighting slouches either. And when you're putting guys away, it's one thing on the regional scene to go decisions with guys with bad records. This guy was beating guys who are at the same level than him, and those guys knocking them out. He's got the power. I got the power. I got the power. And he's an exciting fighter to watch, Trevor Peek. I'm going with Trevor Peek on this one. Again, he impressed me on Contender Series. And if we're going to put 2 strikers up against each other, I'm going with the guy, even if he's a little less experienced than Gonzalez, I'm going with the guy who's knocked everybody out. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Gonzalez's record is meh, and he's fought in meh guys on the regional scene. Peek is buzzing right now. Again, go watch his knockout on Contender Series. It was awesome. Even Dana was all pumped about it. This is going to be a fun fight for us. Probably a hard fight for both of them. I believe it's going to be a striking battle, and I think Trevor Peek will come out on top. Whether this goes the distance or Peek knocks out Gonzalez, it's not going to be easy for Peek, but I think he's going to get it done. I mean, 6 KO TKOs on the regionals and 1 on Contender Series. How are you? Trevor Peek, that's my pick. Locking it in. Let's go to the next one. Why are you doing us dirty, Dana White? Why are you doing us Canadians dirty? Mike Malott against Yohan Lainesse. Mike Malott out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. The proper Mike Malott. He's 8-1 in his pro MMA career with 1 draw in there as well. 31 years of age. 4 KO TKO, 4 submissions, 0 decisions. So he finishes all his opponents, which is very, very positive. And he's on a 4-fight win streak right now, fighting in XFFC, Cage Fury FC, Dana White's Contender Series, where he got a submission guillotine choke. And he beat, Mickey Gall, April of last year. I'm not going to say that Mickey Gall is that impressive of a win, but hey, it was your UFC debut coming off Contender Series. Respect. It's funny, he lost to Hakeem Dawodu, a fellow Canadian, in World Series of Fighting 14. Before then, was on a 4-fight win streak to start his career. Looking at his opponent, Yohan Lainesse, the White Lion out of Quebec, Canada. 30 years old, actually younger than his opponent. 9 wins, 1 loss, 6 KO TKO, 0 submissions, 3 decisions. He beat Darren Weeks in his last fight. Now, it was a very, very close decision. Some might say a controversial win, but hey, a win's a win. Before then, he lost to Gabriel Green, coming off his win in Contender Series that earned him a UFC contract. He's 1-1 in the UFC, but he did have an impressive win on Contender Series where he got a knockout in the first round against Justin Burlinson. He primarily fought in Cage Fury FC, so a great regional developmental promotion where he went 4-0, and before then fought in TKO MMA. Fighting on the same card as Jourdain. Funny enough. So again, was undefeated before coming into the UFC. Suffered his first loss. A little growing pain. Never hurt anyone. Well, some probably kind of hurt since he suffered a TKO. Herb Dean was his ref, so I'm sure he took a few more punches than needed. And then a controversial win against Darren Weeks. I'm sure he wants to come back strong. Unfortunate, it's against a fellow countryman, Yohan Lainesse against Mike Malott. Why are you doing this to us, UFC? Why are you doing Canada dirty? You got 3 Canadians on this card and 2 of them are fighting each other? Come on. Come on. I'm going to the Yohan Lainesse. I know, like I said, his last fight was a close decision. Upon calling it, really thought that he was going to lose. We did a live stream for the Diaz and Ferguson fight card, but hey, he got the win, so smiles over here. He's got good cardio. He's an explosive striker. He's a little bit lankier. I think he'll pick his opponent apart on the outside. That's not really Mike Malott's game at all. And funny enough, he's younger. 7 of his 9 wins have been KO TKO, so that just shows that Yohan Lainesse likes to strike and has some power in those mitts. Fought way better fighters on the come up in Cage Fury FC. He fought more in Cage Fury FC than Mike Malott. And I just think overall his striking's better. I don't think his ground game's anything special, but he's clearly worked in camp. He's clearly worked throughout his career to keep fights on the feet. And if Mike Malott wants to engage with him, I just think Yohan Lainesse gets the better of him on the outside. And that's going to make it tough for Mike Malott to go in for a takedown or try to get into the pocket, clinch, dirty box, and even try to take down Yohan Lainesse. I'm going to the Yohan Lainesse. He either gets the knockout or this goes to a decision, but I don't think it's going to be controversial. I think this one, Yohan Lainesse will feel good about earning a solid and prideful victory in the UFC. Yohan Lainesse, that's my pick. Let's go to the next one. The return of Tatiana Suarez against Montana De La Rosa. Tatiana Suarez, 32 years old. 8 wins, 0 losses, 2 KO TKO, 5 submissions, 3 decisions. Last wins, notable wins, Nina Muniz and Carla Esparza when Carla Esparza was 30 years old, in her prime, right before she went on that ridiculous streak to earn the title. And I mean, her record speaks for itself. Undefeated in the UFC, undefeated overall, undefeated on the amateur scene as well. She was one of those fighters on the come up for the women's side of the UFC that everyone said was going to be a title holder. Injuries held her away from the octagon for a few years. 2019, her win against Nina Muniz was her last win, so there might be some ring rust there, but everyone's excited to see the return of Tatiana, the undefeated Suarez. Her opponent, Montana De La Rosa, 12 wins, 7 losses, 28 years old, 1 KO TKO, 8 submission, 3 decision, 1 draw. She lost her last fight to Macy Barber. It's just kind of been a streaky fighter in the UFC her entire career. She's a win 1, lose 1, draw 1 type of gal. Now, she did put up a 3-fight win streak upon entering the UFC. She lost to, funny enough, Cynthia Calvillo and Mackenzie Dern in LFC and LFA. So that just shows, I mean, where she's at. Even on the regional scene, she couldn't beat those fighters who are now, solid fighters in the UFC. She won a fight coming off those 2 losses in XFN, and then went on a 2 or 3-fight win streak, like I said, in the UFC. Ultimate Fighter 26 finale, 27 finale, and then Adesanya versus Silva back in 2019. Then just went on the streaky record. Andrea Lee, win, loss, win, draw, win, loss. As you can see, her record is nothing special. Thus, I'm not picking her to win. Now, will there be a little bit of ring rust? Ring rust? Against Tatiana Suarez? What is wrong with me today? I need more coffee. I do think there will be a little bit of ring rust. Does that mean she's going to lose this fight? Hell no. Hell no. It just might mean it goes to decision and Tatiana Suarez doesn't finish De La Rosa. But even then, I think it just goes 3rd round. There'll be 1 round to shake off the cobwebs and Suarez will really get it on. De La Rosa is meh at best, folks. Suarez is fully healthy and we don't see much ring rust. It's going to be absolute domination. I give it 1 round for Suarez to kind of get back in the groove of things. And then I think she's going to just lay it on De La Rosa. If De La Rosa wins here, what an upset. What an upset. I know the odds are crazy for this one, but yeah, Suarez has got this one in the bank. Glad to see that she's back, and let's see if she can get a title this year. Next, we have some heavyweights. Augusto Sakai against Dontel Mays. Augusto Sakai, 15 wins, 5 losses. He's 31 years old. 11 wins via KO, TKO, 4 decisions, 1 draw. He's on a 4-fight losing streak right now. He lost to Sergey Spivak, Tai Tuivasa, Jarzinho Rosenstrike, and Alistair Overeem. He did beat Blago Ivanov, Merchant Tybura, Andrei Arlovsky, Chase Sherman on the come-up, which actually got him ranked in the heavyweight division, and he beat them all except for Ivanov by TKO. Or I guess he actually went to a decision with Arlovsky. Never mind. Lost via KO, TKO to all his opponents since. Overeem, Rosenstrike, Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak. Augusto Sakai really needs a win here if he wants to continue his career in the UFC. I cannot believe he's only 31 years old. He's got some miles on him for being only 31, as he had a career in Bellator before even coming over to the UFC. His opponent, Dontel Mays, 9 wins, 4 losses, 1 no contest, 5 wins via KO, TKO, 1 submission, 3 decisions. He lost his last fight to Hamdi Abdelwahab, but Hamdi actually just got dinged for PD usage, so that fight was turned to a no contest. Before that was on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC. Coming off a 2-fight losing streak though. However, he did give Cyril Gane a good fight and a challenge. Coming off Contender Series. He had 3 opportunities on Contender Series. My goodness, lost his first one, got a fight in victory, won that fight, back on Contender Series, back to the regional scenes, back to Contender Series, and then finally got into the UFC. Lost 2 fights in a row, beat Roque Martinez and Josh Parisian, and then again had that fight against Hamdi Abdelwahab. What are we doing here, UFC? What are we doing here? This is the best heavyweight fight that you could put on this card? Really? Really? Trash fight, in my opinion, but we're going with Dontel Mays. Sakai sucks, man. What happened? There was one point where he was knocking everybody out. Bellator, on the come up in the UFC. I mean, then he gets knocked the out 4 times in a row. I guess some of the opponents there were good fighters. He doesn't look like an athlete at all. And I know Chris Barnett doesn't really look much like an athlete as well, but Chris Barnett is the Karate Kid, okay? Augusto Sakai, he can't throw kicks like Chris Barnett. But I digress. He used to be ranked, which is what's crazy. He's on a losing streak. He looked bad in all those fights. He's been finished in all those fights. So I'm going for Dontel Mays. I know Hamdi beat him up quite a bit in that fight, but Dontel Mays towards the end of it actually looked pretty good. He just looked hesitant and a little shell shock for some reason in that fight, but it's not like Hamdi dominated him the whole fight. I think Hamdi deserved the decision. Hamdi started to slow down towards the end despite being on the roids. Dontel Mays, though he's pretty much the same age as Sakai, is young in his career. He's a younger fighter as far as wear and tear, miles, whatever you want to call it. Fights at a high pace, has good cardio for a heavyweight, and a decent rise to the UFC, knocking out people in LFA. I'm going with Dontel Mays. Please make this a good fight. Quick, or just make it quick. Just make it quick. Augusto Sakai, I hope he retires or is let go from the promotion after this KO TKO so that it doesn't take any more damage to the real big boys in the UFC. You had a good run in the promotion, Sakai, but it is over. We're going with Dontel Mays on to the co-main event. André Muniz against Brendan Allen. André Muniz, 33 years old, 23 wins, 4 losses, an impressive record. 4 KO TKO, 15 submissions, 4 decisions. Wow. Beat Uriah Hall, Erick Anders, Ronaldo Souza, Antonio Arroyo. Some names of note in his last few fights in the UFC. He came off season 3 of Contender Series and has been undefeated in the UFC ever since. Again, submissions are the name to his game, that or decisions, but he is a very sick grappler and he's got some awesome wins on his resume. For the UFC, fought, again, a bunch of promotions that I'm not really familiar with. Few of them being, out in Brazil as well. But he has not disappointed. He's not lost in the UFC, and he looked very good in his Contender Series win. André Muniz. Looking at his opponent, all in Brendan Allen. 20 wins, 5 losses. He's only 27 years of age. And he's got a bunch of submissions as well. 11 submissions, 5 KO, TKO, 4 submissions. He's on a 3-fight win streak, beating Krzysztof Jotko, Jacob Malkoun, and the man, the myth, the legend, Sam Alvey. His only two losses in the UFC have come to phenomenal strikers in Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis. And he's actually been in the UFC for a little while now, coming off Dana White's Contender Series, beating my boy, fellow Canadian Aaron Jeffrey back in 2019. He beat Kevin Holland in the UFC, Kyle Dawkins, Carl Robinson, and again, his last two fights of note as well, Jacob Malkoun and Krzysztof Jotko. I am going with the underdog on this one. I'm going with Brendan Allen. He is a phenomenal grappler. Is he as good of a grappler, as good of a submission artist as that of an André Muniz? No. But he's good enough where if he just fights smart and doesn't put himself in danger or risky positions to get those crazy transitions into dominant position, and he just fights a little bit more conservative, but, you know, aggressive as far as attacking on the feet, I think Brendan Allen can actually pull this one out. It's going to be a close fight. He's not a huge underdog, and he just has to be more focused with his grappling, and I think he'll at least be able to match or nullify that of André Muniz. Again, only two losses were to damn good strikers in the UFC, Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis, who are also training partners and friends themselves. Muniz is good, but Allen's still young. If Allen polished what needed to be addressed from his last losses, from even some of his close decisions, some of his fights where he won via finish, but maybe had some struggles leading up to that point, then I think that this could really be an eye-opener for a lot of people who A, have doubted him in his UFC reign thus far, and or B, those who at times have really been hyping this guy up because they see the tools there. We just haven't seen it come together 100% in a fight. I think this will be the fight that we see that for Brendan Allen. He's only 27 years old. I know he has a lot of fights under his belt, but I'm going for him here. I think he's going to fight smart. I don't think he's going to get bullied and out-grappled. And let's go Brendan Allen. Locking it in for the co-main event of the evening. Next, let's get to the main event of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. The moment you've all been waiting for, my pick for the main event of the evening on the other side. It's time! Nikita Krylov against Ryan Spann. Nikita, the minor Krylov out of Ukraine, 29 wins, 9 losses. He's 30 years old. Talk about a well-balanced fighter, folks. 12 KO TKO, 15 submissions, 2 decisions. He's on a 2-fight win streak right now. He beat Alexander Gustafsson and Volkan Ozdemir in his last 2 fights. Before then, lost to Paul Craig, Magomed Ankalaev, but it was a close fight against Ankalaev, and I would say that he actually probably won that first round against him. Paul Craig, he was beating up Paul Craig the entire fight and then got caught in Paul Craig's triangle choke. He beat Johnny Walker, lost to Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira was making his, I don't want to say comeback, but another shot at the title that he eventually won. And hey, it was a close fight. It was a split decision victory. Beat OSP before OSP was completely trash. Lost to Jan Blachowicz when Jan Blachowicz was coming back up, going on his title run as well. And then before entering the UFC, where he lost to Jan Blachowicz in his first fight, or I shouldn't say his first fight, coming back to the UFC, I should say, he went on a 4-fight win streak. The guy has come and gone to the UFC, folks. He had an impressive UFC career coming out of M1 and Gladiator Fighting Championship before leaving and then coming back to the UFC. And he's looked good upon his return. Yeah, his record's nothing crazy. Look at the freaking guys. He's fought Paul Craig, Ankalaev, Glover Teixeira, Jan Blachowicz. 2 former champions. Magomed Ankalaev, title challenger, and Paul Craig in the top 10. And Volkan Ozdemir, what a great win. What a great win for Nikita Krylov. Ryan Superman Spann, 31 years old, 21 wins, 7 losses, 6 KO TKO, 12 submissions, 3 decisions. He's on a 2-fight win streak as well, coming off wins to Ian Cutelaba and Dominic Reyes. An absolute dominating win over Dominic Reyes. Traded some wins and losses. Lost to Johnny Walker, beat Misha Chikunov, lost to Anthony Smith. They both have wins over Sam Alvey. His last loss, and a decent come up as well, as he primarily developed in LFC. Before going to LFA, he got an opportunity on Dana White's Contender Series in Season 1. Didn't make it. Goes back to the regional scene. Goes back to LFA. Continues to develop. Gets 3 wins in LFA. Comes back to Contender Series. Wins 4 wins in a row in his first 4 UFC fights. Levels up. Loses to Johnny Walker. Trades some wins. trade some loss, then put the 2-fight win streak together leading up to this one. We've made it. Main event of the evening. Before I give my final prediction of the card, folks, please like and subscribe, comment who you are predicting to win, and if any of my picks seem a little crazy to you, am I out to lunch? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, ring that bell for notifications so you never miss an upload, a live stream, or any of the content that we post on this channel. Okay, Ryan Spann, Nikita Krylov. I'm going with the underdog. I'm going with Ryan Spann. Before I get into why I think Ryan Spann will win this, let me first just say that this was an incredibly hard decision. This was an incredibly hard pick. This is a tough fight to pick. Both of these guys are tremendous fighters. Some might say that Krylov is the better fighter. That may be the case, but this is going to be a tough test for both of these guys. Krylov has fought killers, okay? Like I said, Paul Craig, Ankalaev, Teixeira, Blachowicz, not to mention Ozdemir in his last fight, and he bullied Ozdemir. Yes, Ozdemir dropped him in the first round and almost finished him, but that just shows Krylov's got a hell of a chin, and that's going to give Ryan Spann some issues. As Ryan Spann, he's got good hands, but if he can't put his opponent away, can his cardio hold up? We shall see. We shall see. Again, Krylov was absolutely destroying Paul Craig before Paul Craig caught him in his triangle choke. Bullied Ozdemir. After getting dropped, came back and dominantly won that fight. It wasn't even close at the end, despite being dropped early. Came back and just, no one throws Ozdemir around like that. I mean, DC didn't even make it look that easy after the first round. Nikita Krylov did. Having said that, Spann has looked great in pretty much all his wins in the UFC, minus the Alves one split decision. But Alves a enigma, folks, all right? The guy is just... Smiling Sam Alves is something else. He humbled Cutelaba, sent Reyes back to the shadow realm, folks. Both have good chins. I think Spann's chin is solid as well. It's just the cardio that I'm worrying about for Spann. But look, if this becomes a war, if this goes the distance, if Spann has worked on his cardio, Spann's in shape, I think Spann gets it done. I think he's going to take that next step and solidify a spot in the top 10, in the top 15, whatever it is, a ranked position, and start looking down the line as a potential title contender. He's not going to be there yet with a win off Krylov, but I think that gets him at least within striking distance. I'm going with Ryan Spann. I could be absolutely burned on this one. No disrespect to the Ukrainian. Krylov's a hell of a fighter. He's fun to watch, but I'm digging what Ryan Spann has been bringing to the table lately, though. I'm digging what Ryan Spann has been bringing to the table lately, folks. So that is my pick. Lock it in, Ryan Spann. That's it for the prediction video, folks. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you this weekend on the live stream.